In this session, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a compound form to input data between two or more tables in Access 2016. So once we have linked the tables and defined the relationships in a database, then you can do a lot of wonderful things and you can enjoy working with Microsoft Access. And now we have linked those tables together and we have defined the relationships to basically create a form. Forms, they can be created either on an individual table. For example, if I go here under Create and I go under Form Wizard here, and let's say I want customers and I want to create a new form for all my customers, click on Next, and then Next, and then Next again. So there's my form for the customers. So this is a simple form in Microsoft Access. To create a compound form, and by the way, the form now has been saved here under Forms, Customers, go under Create here, go under Form Wizard, and then we choose Customers. Let's say I want everything from my customers table, and then I want also data from my contracts table. And here under the contracts, I want to make sure I have the contract number. I don't need the customer ID because it's going to be in the customers table. Then I want the contract amount, and then the signing date, and then the type as well. And then click on Next. At this point, it asks us, how do you want to organize the data? We want to see basically, since our customers are going to have more than one contract, it's a one-to-many relationship, we want to organize it by customer. So we have customer 1, and then you can see 3 or 4 contracts, customer 2, 1 contract or 5 contracts or 15 contracts or whatever they have. And then we leave everything else alone here and then click on Next. Then here we click on Next again, and then we give it a name. So we could actually say contracts by customer, and then click on Finish. By the way, make sure you give a meaningful name there. And now at this point, notice what happens here. So you have the customer on the top here, their customer information, but then right below this customer, we also have the orders or the contracts. You could go and add new contracts if you wanted here, so you could have and such. So now for this customer, we have a new contract created as well. So basically, at this point, your assistant can use it to look up customers and their information, or you can use it to update the new contracts or new orders related to that customer or your customers. Notice you have also these controls here, so you can go from one customer to the next. So you go Next here, and by the way, you'd have to adjust this. So if you click here on customer, on the customer area, now we can go from one customer to the next and so on. If we want to go from one order to the other and add new orders, you have also those controls for this subform. This form here is a mechanism to enter new data, view data. You have the main form, which is contracts by customer, but then right below it, you have the subform, which is pulling from the contracts table. So we have the data from 2 tables being displayed at the same time. And then you have the main controls for the main table over here, and you can create new records as well if you need it by using this button right here. And then in the bottom here, you have the actual orders or the contracts for the customers. To update data in here, whether you want to change to add new comments, or whether you want to add new forms or new customers from here. Now remember, all the data that we enter from here, it actually goes and gets stored in the actual tables. So if we go here under customers, we should have this new customer that we just entered earlier. So that's how compound forms work and how you create them and update them and use them. In the next session, I'm going to show you how to customize the form in Microsoft Access 2016. Earlier in this tutorial, I created a form called Contracts by Customer. This is what it looks like so far, and the purpose of this session is how to customize this form. There are 3 different views for customizing anything in Microsoft Access. Here on the left-hand side, you have the layout view, and then you have also the design view. One thing that you can do definitely is you can customize this and make it smaller or bigger or however you want to resize this. So let's say you want to make the text there formatted slightly different, and you have the formatting tools and basically change it however you want, very similar to Microsoft Word. Now the next thing that you might want to do here is that you don't really need this customer ID data so big and such, so you can resize it, and we are doing this by using the layout view. The next one is go through each field here and customize this to your liking. Additionally, you can change the formatting for this so it will be a little bit easier to read. You want to make sure that you adjust only the stuff here on the left and not elsewhere. And basically you're formatting this to whatever you want. So you're customizing it to your liking. Since we are formatting this and changing the layout view, notice that we have the form layout tools. These are the contextual tools related to this form in Microsoft Access. We have these different tabs here that you can change and tweak and such. But one of the cool things here is that you can apply themes instead of you spending all afternoon tweaking this and changing this. Probably the width of these fields, customize them manually here. As far as the colors and such, what you could do is you can go and simply apply one of those themes. So you pick from one of those themes here, and notice it's going to change the design, whether it's the font or whether it's other components related to this form. So pick one of those themes and then further adjust it. And then notice that you have also various color schemes here that you can apply. Didn't change too much, but you get the idea. And then you can apply also the different fonts as well. So that's one way to customize this. If you wanted to tinker and insert images and such, you can utilize this, and you add logos and such. And then you could click here under Property Sheet, and this tells us where this field is linked to. It controls the linking to the table itself. So for example, right here it says that it's linked to the comments field on the customers table. And then notice there are lots of controls here that you can change. Typically you don't want to tinker with this or to change this to something different, because then it will break that link and then the data will not be updated. This is one way to customize this form. The next way to customize it is going into the design view, and this is another mechanism. So I'm going to save these changes first. This is a little bit more in depth. It shows the data where it's linked behind the scenes with what fields, and you can line things exactly the way you want them appropriately and all that type of thing. Notice that you can change here colors and alternate rows and background image and all that type of thing, and the fill and all that type of stuff. That is more advanced. You can resize stuff, move things around if you needed to. But in a nutshell, that's how you customize it. You customize it by going through these different views that we just went over here. Once you're all set with the design and such, then you can close your design, save the changes, and then open it up again. It should have applied the changes that we made earlier. You want to make these forms as nicely as you can so that your staff that is utilizing these forms is actually using them effectively, and also it's pleasant and easy for them to enter the data. Keep in mind that you can create more than one form based on the data. So if one of your assistants needs access to only a couple pieces of data here, then you create a form specifically for them. And for others, you create a more complete form and such. So hopefully that makes sense and that it was helpful. In this session, I'm going to briefly demonstrate how to search for specific records by a specific field via a form in a Microsoft Access database, particularly in Access 2016. So supposedly this is our form here, and we have contracts by customer. And now your assistant is keeping track of your customers and also keeping track of orders and such. And now a new customer called, and how can she pull up the information for a new customer? So you can pull up the information by using a variety of methods here, by using any of these fields. All that the assistant would have to do is click on a field, let's say searching by customer ID. She simply needs, or he needs to simply click on the field here, click on find, and then type the customer number. So for example, 11040, then click on find next, and then notice we have that specific customer in here. The other thing that you can do, or she could do it, or anyone could do here, is searching, let's say, by first name or by some other field. So I'm going to go back here, and let's say by first name, you can click on the field there and then choose Michael. Find, and you can have this over here as well, and there is Michael Ingram, phone number and information related to that specific user. Then you can find additional ones if needed as well. So notice there are 2 records with that. You can also filter the records by a specific field. So let's say you wanted all the records to be displayed, the customers that start with the name, first name Michael. So you can select it here and go under filter, and then notice you have all the different options here. So you can simply uncheck them all and then pick what you want here. So let's say Michael, and unfortunately it's beyond the recording area here, but you get the idea. It's going to be Michael or whatever, but let's say Jessica here. I'm not sure that there is more than one Jessica, but let's say Jessica and John, and then I'm going to uncheck Michael here. Now notice there are 3 filtered results that showed up here, and we can go from one to the other So there were 2 customers with the name John here. Keep in mind, whenever you have filtered stuff, it's going to display only what you filtered by, and then this field right here where it says filtered, it's going to be highlighted there. You can do that with any of those fields by either searching and finding records from up here, or by filtering from this option over here. In this session, I'm going to demonstrate how to create queries from multiple tables in an Access database. We'll create those queries using the query wizard, and then in the next session we are going to do the advanced query method. In order for us to create queries from multiple tables, we need to first make sure that the tables have been linked via these relationships here. So you can check that from the database tools and then relationships, and you should see these links. And notice here that we have the customers table, which is linked to the contracts table. So let's say that we want to create a listing, or a query as the technical term is, of the customer ID, the first name, last name, street address, and then the city, zip, state. And then we want to also list the contract information for these customers. So here's how we do that. We'll close this first, and now we go here under create, and then we go under query wizard, and then click on OK. And then we are going to go first to customers. We're going to pick customer ID, first name, last name, street address, city, zips. And then we go to the next table. Here we go under contracts, and then we'll pick up the contract number, and then the amount, date, and type. Then we click on next, and then click on next again, and then here we could have some kind of meaningful name, and then finish. Notice at this point we have the list with the data that we requested, customer, first name, last name, and such, and the data has been pulled from both tables. So that is creating a query using the query wizard. You could do also the similar thing as well if we save this. Now we can go and create one for invoices. So let's say we want to see the contracts and how many invoices remain to be paid. So we go here under Query Wizard, and then go under Simple Query Wizard again, And we can do this with two other tables. So we can go under contracts, we can get the contract number, and then we can go under invoices and then pick the invoice number, the date, and whether it was paid or not, and then next, and then give it a meaningful name. Click on finish, and here we have the contract number, the customer ID, the contract amount, date, the type, the invoice specific number, the date that the invoice was issued, and whether the invoice was paid. So next we are going to learn how to utilize the advanced queries in a database. In this session, I'm going to briefly demonstrate how to utilize the query design in Access 2016. So far in our Access tutorial, we have learned how to use the query wizard in defining and designing a query. But in most cases in Access 2016 and previous versions of Access, a more effective way to utilize queries and design queries is to use a query design. The way that works is that instead of you going through step by step and adding specific fields in a query, you can actually design this query using this method. So to utilize the query design, we click here on query design icon, and then the big idea here is that you pick the tables that you want to work with initially. So in our case here, the tables have been linked by using the relationship module that we saw earlier. And now we'll pick the tables that we want to utilize. And then click on OK. Typically the relationship looks like this. So we have customers, then we have contracts, then we have invoices. The way it works is that you have these tables here with all the different fields from each table. And you pick specific fields from each table and you're creating a new query. So for example, we want here first name, last name, and let's say the invoice number. And typically you can either double click on these fields that you want to add to the query down below, or you can simply drag these fields down here like we did a moment ago. If you double click on this asterisk sign, it will insert all the fields that are part of that table. Now here we want, for example, the invoice number, the contract number, and I'm double clicking at this point, the item, and the amount. And then we want also whether it was paid or not. Now let's assume that these are the fields that we want in our case. Now you can run this and see what it looks like. Notice you have the first name, last name. Actually, they are kind of backwards. You can readjust that. We can go back and readjust it. And we have invoices paid or not. If we want to tweak this query again, we go here under design mode and go into design view and then tweak this again. So if we wanted, for example, first name to be first, simply drag this to the left. And once we move the fields the way we want or customize this view the way we want, then we can run this again. And now notice first name is in the beginning and then you have last name and so on. So that's how you briefly utilize the query design in Microsoft Access 2016 and Access database. Notice as well, if we go back here to the design view, you can define the sorting order. You can define specific criteria, whether the criteria is either or different various criteria by various fields here. And that's what we'll learn next. And before I finalize it completely here, notice also there are additional parameters that you can utilize here, and we'll cover these shortly as well, such as the query builder and the totals field and such. In this session, I'm going to briefly demonstrate how to utilize criteria, how to define the criteria within a query in Microsoft Access 2016 using the query design. So here's how it works. Let's say we have this query here called invoices and contracts. Actually, we have not named this yet. It's query number 1. We go here under query design view. And now let's say that we wanted to see, for example, only the invoices that have not been paid. If we go under the invoices table and notice here that this is a yes or no field to enter a criteria, so we see only the invoices that have not been paid. We go here under the design view, and what we want to do is here under invoices paid, notice there is an option for criteria. There is a row here that we can put a criteria for this specific field. So we want to display only the invoices that have not been paid. In that case, we want to display those that meet the criteria for no. So we simply have to put no in there, and now click somewhere else outside of this area and then run this query. Now notice it's displaying only those that have not been paid. If we wanted to display the text here, whether yes or no, or invoices paid, or with the wording no next to it, just to be sure, we make sure that this check mark, and by the way, that should be there automatically, make sure that it has the check mark right here. Now if we go and run it again, notice it says invoice paid no, and it's displaying only those. If we want to hide that field, we go back to the design view and then just take out the check mark and then run it again, and it will not display it. So that's how you insert a criteria within a query using the query design. Now you can have multiple criteria as well. If we run this query right now, notice that there are invoices ranging from $1,000 to more than $30,000 here. So let's say we want to see only the invoices that have not been paid of greater than $10,000. So to insert that criteria, we go back to the query design here, and then under the amount, for the specific criteria, we want to put them so that both criteria would be met. We say greater than equal 10,000. And then click anywhere outside of this field and then run this. So we are saying we want the criteria, all of these fields, plus the amount needs to be greater than or equal to 10,000, and then the invoice needs to be not paid. We run this, and now notice we have all these invoices displayed. The other thing that we could do is we could sort this, and we can go back here to the design view again and customize this further. So under the sorting criteria, we say we want to sort this in descending order. We want to see the largest amounts first, followed by the smallest ones. So notice we are doing three things so far. Click on run again, and now notice the $105,000 invoice comes first, and then the rest are following that. Then if we go back to the design view, we could even insert as many criteria as you want, and I hope you get the idea. So you could sort, for example, by a specific zip code or by a specific city and so on. Under city, for example, if I wanted to add an additional field and I want to insert it right there, just simply drag it in there, and then we could have various criteria. So right now I don't have any criteria by city, and if I run it, notice it's just going to display the city. But let's say that I want the city Lansing or Holland. So I want to display those two cities. Now in my case here, I can go back to the design view and I'll enter two criteria. So one of them will be Lansing. Now you have to type that correctly, and I can say or Holland. So it could be either one of them, and then run them. Notice it is displaying only the city Lansing or Holland, but then notice that the criteria is not quite what we were expecting earlier. Notice that we have 2,500, so it's no longer just 10,000 or more. The reason for that is because we have here in our criteria stating that the criteria could be Lansing greater than 10,000 and invoice is not paid, or anything from the city called Holland. So we either have to move this up here or utilize the criteria either or that we were using earlier. But then keep in mind that it's not going to apply. So we have to put them like this with the or here, and then the additional two criteria. Then we run it, and notice these are the only clients that have not paid their invoices yet, with the greater than 10,000 balance, and only Lansing or Holland, just for those two cities. So that's how the query design works, with multiple criteria within the query. In this session, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the query design and also define calculated fields, or have calculated fields as part of the query design. Let's assume that we have a bunch of customers, they have not paid their invoices, and we want to calculate a late fee. So part of our query, we want to display what the late fee calculation would be. So here's how we do that. We go here under the query design, and then first thing, we need to pick the tables that we want to utilize. So let's say we want customers, then we want contracts, and then let's say we wanted the invoices. So I'm just going to list those three tables that we are utilizing at this point, but in reality I'm going to use only customers and invoices in this case. So we want the first name, I'm double clicking on them, last name, and then let's say you wanted the street address, city, state, and zip. And then we want also the invoice number, the date, the item, the amount, and then we want whether it was paid or not. I'm going to resize this. I'm just dragging it up so we can see this a little bit easier. And now if I go and run this query, notice it's going to display the data that we picked. However, it's not filtering yet, or it's not giving us only the unpaid invoices. To fix that, we go under Design View again, and then we go under Invoices, we say Not Paid. So whether it was paid under the criteria, notice the criteria row here, we say no. Now, the next thing that we want to do, and by the way, if we run this again, notice it will be displayed. Now, if we go back, we want to create here a new field that will say late payment. And then part of that field, we want it to calculate what the late payment would be. So the way you do that is by clicking here on this option that is called Builder. So we want to build a new calculated field. We click on Builder. So first I selected the new field where we want to do this, and then secondly we want to utilize the Builder function. Before we can utilize the Builder function, it's best to save this query first. So we could say, just click on the X here on the top right, and we'll say yes. Then we'll call this late fees. And then click OK. Now we go back here to the late fees and we run this query. Then we go under the design view. By the way, you could right click on it and choose design view as well to get to it. And then we scroll all the way to the empty new field here. And then we want to click on Builder. On Builder, by the way, once you save it, notice we have all these fields right here under the expression categories. That's basically telling us that these are all the fields that are being utilized as part of this query. So all that we have to do is we click on the invoice amount and double click on it. And notice it's putting it in brackets and such. And then we do the asterisk, which is the multiplication. So we want to say the amount multiplied by some kind of percentage. So you could say it's 5% late fee for any unpaid invoices past 30 days or whatever. So then you do that by times 0. Or as part of your database, you could design another field in there or column to say late fee, like how much the late fee would be. And then in that way you don't have to enter the 0.5 manually. You could just multiply the late fee multiplied by the actual amount of the invoice. In our case, we're just going to do it this slightly manually. So we have the invoice amount times 0.5, and then we click on OK. You could have simply selected another field there instead of 0.5, like I mentioned a moment ago. Now we click OK, and then notice now it enters all kinds of codes here. Now instead of you choosing to have that as expression 1, we could have that called late fees or late fee. And then simply run this, and now notice if you scroll to the right, you have here the invoice was not paid, it's $12,000, and the late fee is $600. And it has calculated this, by the way, for all the amounts. Now, if you don't want this invoice paid, no, you can just simply hide it, like, and I'll show that in a moment. Let's say we want to format this in currency, in dollar amounts, we can do that as well. And we go back here under Design View, and then we want to choose to not display whether it was paid or not, just that column we want to hide it. And then the amount here, if you click on the actual field and go under Property Sheet here on the top, or you could right click and choose Property, and then under the format we want to click on the drop down here, and we want to choose the currency. And then you can even choose the decimal places, let's say 2 decimal places, and then you can close the property sheet here. Now if you run this again, notice that the late fee will be in currency. And that's how you calculate the late fee using the query design in Microsoft Access 2016. Now we save this, and then at any point for any of the customers, as you enter and change data, this will be generated automatically. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create reports and customize reports in Microsoft Access 2016. This process is going to start with the very basics, and then we're going to move into some of the more advanced features of customizing reports in Microsoft Access. So in this case, we have a database with 3 tables. And if you wanted to learn more as to how to work with an Access database, please refer to the previous videos on this tutorial. So we have 3 tables. We have a contracts table. Let's assume we have contracts for customers. Then we have a customers table. And then we have an invoices table. So the tables look like this. Now in our case, we also have those tables linked together, which is a common feature of an Access database or any of the relational databases out there. So as such, if we go here under Database Tools, and then we go under Relationships, you'll see that we have those tables linked together. And if you want to learn more about these, you can check the previous tutorials as well. And now we can create reports based on each one of those tables individually, or we can create reports by pulling data from multiple tables. For example, if we wanted customer ID from the customers table and the first name and last name from the customers table, then we can also pull, for example, the contract number. We can pull also the amount and the signing date and the contract type, because those 2 tables are linked together. So let's learn how to do this. To create a report, we need to go here under Create tab, and then we can click here under Reports, and notice we have this whole section with reports. So we can create using the Design option, the blank report, start from scratch, or we can use the Report Wizard. If you're just starting with the databases, I would suggest that you start with the Report Wizard, as that is going to be the simplest way for you to learn how to do this. So we go here under Report Wizard, and then you basically pick the first table that you want to pick the fields from. So in our case, we go to the Customers table, and let's say we want the first name, and we want the last name, And let's say we want the street address, the city, zip, state, and email. So these are just some of the fields from that table. Now in our first instance here, we are going to simply create a report just from one table so that we get the idea. And then we are going to pull the data from multiple tables. So we go here under Next, and then we choose how do we want to group those, if we wanted to create groupings of those customers. In our case, for now, we're just going to leave this alone. And then we click on Next. And then here it's asking us, do we want to sort those customers? So we could technically choose to sort those by first name or by last name or by zip or any of those fields here. So we're going to just say we want to sort them by first name. Then you can also choose additional sorting criteria as well, subsequent ones. Typically the first option here is going to take priority, then it's going to go to the second priority, and so on. So we click on Next, and then it's going to create the report here in the tabular format, and then you can also choose whether you want the orientation to be portrait or landscape. If it's a lot of fields that you're going to have in your table, it's best probably to choose landscape. But for now, with the number of fields that we have, we just can create it using the portrait view. And then we give it a name here. So just a customer list. We can call this whatever we want, customer list, and then it's going to give us a preview of this report. We click on Finish here, and notice the preview has been created. So if I close it here on the right hand side, now notice under Reports I have a new customer list report. If I double click on it, notice I can see all those customers here. Now you'd say, well, it's kind of cutting here the email field on the right hand side. How can I change that? How can I customize that? We can customize any of those reports that we create a couple ways, or you can do this in a couple ways. You can either go here under View. As soon as we have selected the report here, we can click on View, and you can change it to the layout view here. So that's one way to customize it, and this is under the layout view. We can go and simply resize the fields. So that's one way to do it. So notice I'm just readjusting the width of those fields. Now probably the address needs to be longer. Notice I'm going to the right here and such. The state doesn't have to be as wide. Then the zip, I can adjust this accordingly. Notice you need to adjust the labels here on the top as well. I'm pressing here Control A to select everything. And we can also go here under Format, and we can change, for example, the font for this to be a smaller size. So you can control how this will display by utilizing or changing the font visual aspects of it. That's one way for you to customize this. If you wanted, by the way, these fields here on the top, the labels, to be in a different format, notice I'm holding down the Control key here and I'm selecting all those labels. Now under the Format, then I can go here under Format and then make this bold. I can choose a different font size and all that type of stuff. Notice also under the Format we had this Select All option that I did earlier using the Control A key on the keyboard. If you wanted to change the top or the heading of this, you can simply go here and double click on the heading and then customize this any way that you want. So that's one easy way to customize this report that we just created here. Notice that there are different designs here that you can apply as well to this report. So notice you have these new tabs here on the very top and these are typically referred to as the contextual tools, since we are tinkering and working here with the report module of the database and adjusting the layout and the design of it. Notice we have this like design tab, arrange tab, format tab, and even page setup, so you can change the look and the feel of this specific report. Notice also under the design tab, you also have these design themes. So if I wanted to apply a different look and feel to this, I can apply one of those themes. Now to go back to the normal view for this report, we go here under view and then report view, and notice it has changed. It has been modified with the changes that we applied earlier. Another way to customize your report is also to utilize the design view, and I'll go more in depth about this shortly here. So you go here under design view after we have selected our report, and this is kind of more complex. And again, notice you have here again the same contextual tools on the very top. However, you can change here. Notice it says page header. If I wanted to move this field a little bit farther to the left and adjust the width and such, again, these are the labels. Notice I can do them more precisely from here. So you can adjust the width of those fields here, and you get the idea at this point. Now these would be just the labels on the top, and these would be the actual fields in the bottom. Notice you can also adjust the footer, what will show up as at the bottom of the report from here as well. So let's assume that I didn't need the email field. You can simply press delete from here and delete both the label and the actual field. The bottom stuff here, it's actually the field from the table that it's linking to the table. And then we can close this report here on the top, save the changes, and now double click on the report again, and notice we do not have that field for the email. Also, if you wanted to see a preview of this, you can click here on the top left and choose print preview, and this is how our report will look at this point. Notice you also have the footer here, the page footer. We can close the preview from here. And at this point, let's also learn how to add a field to an existing report. So let's assume that this is our report, and then somehow we missed adding the email field to an existing report. Of course, we could create something from scratch. However, in certain cases, your report might be fairly complicated and you want to add another field or a couple fields. So here's how you add the other fields to it. You can right-click on the report and choose Design View, or you can go up here under View, under the Home tab, and choose Design View. So you'll kind of want to do this from the Design View. Now, on the right-hand side, or on the very top here, notice how it says Add Existing Fields. So you can click here on Add Existing Fields. So notice we have the list of fields here from our table, and we can move this a little bit. And then we want to add here the email field. So we simply drag it, but we need to drag it, notice in this white spots here where the detail for the form is. We don't need to put it under page header. We want to put it under the detail area. This would be the content of our report. We are kind of linking this field with the actual table from the customer's table here. So this is not the label, it's actually the data from the table. So we simply drag it and we just drop it where we want it. Then adjust the positioning of it on that report, how you want it, how wide you want it, and all that type of stuff. And then notice at this stage it's not giving us the option to put this the label for it, because if I run this right now and I save the design, notice it's not going to have the label here on the top as to what this is. We need to basically go under the design view again, and in this case the label is right there, but notice it's kind of like, if we move this a little bit, Notice the email label, it's over here to the left. What you can do is you can simply click on that email label, the one that it came in, or the one that it brought in, delete it, reposition your data field here, how you want it and how wide you want. And then above it, under the header area, that's where you need to create a new label for this. So to add the label on the header, what you do is you go here under the label area, here on the design. Notice there's this icon label here, and then choose where you want that label and how wide you want it. And then type in their email. Hit enter, and then reposition it the way you want it. Realign it. Same thing with the one here as well. And let's go under view here and choose report view. Notice we have this email field created. If we wanted to change the formatting and adjust the formatting again, you can simply go under view, go under layout view, and then under design, apply a different theme or apply the theme that you had from before. Now notice in certain spots here we have this, or for this, we might still need to adjust the formatting. Notice this has a border around it, this field, so we might need to adjust the formatting for it and get rid of the border. To change the border, there are a couple ways to do that. You can either right click here under the field, and notice I'm under the layout view. You can do this also from the design view. And if I go here under properties for this object, so once I go to the property sheet for this specific field, notice here under border, it says to use a border style solid, and I can change that so that it's just transparent or nothing. And then you can choose the border effect as well if you need it to. If I go here under and close this, now that border should not appear anymore. Notice it's gone. If I wanted to change the size of the font, of course, go back to layout view, and for this field you can go under the format tab and then change the size to match the rest of the form. And then if we go here under design tab again, then if we go and view this report, this is how it will look at this point. Instead of spending all this time to customize the look and feel of this, you can also go back here and use what's called the format painter. So you can copy the formatting of a specific cell and adjust it for other cells. So if I go back here to my layout view, and I'll go and undo some of those things that I had done earlier, so some of those changes, notice right now if I go back to view here, notice I have my border stuff again here. Go under format painter here from the layout view, and I can copy the formatting of an existing cell and apply it to another one. So I can go to any of these cells, go under format here, and then use this icon right here, the format painter. That copies the formatting of an object and applies it to another object. So click on it, and then go to the other object, any of these here, and apply it. And now it's all changed automatically. So that's the easier way to do this. Then close it, click on Save Changes, and now you can double click on it, and this is your report. And this is the print preview of this report. So this is how you create a report, this is how you customize the report, and how you remove fields from the report, and also how you add additional fields to the report if you had an existing one. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to create a report from multiple tables in Microsoft Access. Reports are one of the most commonly used features of an Access database as a user. Most of the time you're not going to be creating databases, and you're not going to be designing them, and you're not going to be creating new tables in a database, even though you can do that. However, most of the time you're going to be creating queries in a database, and you're going to be creating reports from the existing data from that database. Now the reports can come in handy whether you're in a corporate environment where you have a corporate database, or whether you have an Access database, but the concept is going to be pretty much the same. Since the tables are linked, typically, and the linking of the tables, you can see it here under the database tools and relationships. We have customers have contracts, and then for each contract there are invoices as well. So it kind of all this stuff, it's linked together. However, now in our case, we can create a report from fields from the customers table, for example, first name, last name, and contact information, and also include the contracts. So we want to see who our customers are, what contracts those customers have. So that's what we're going to learn in this session. So to create a report, you can go here under Create, and then we want to go under this section here, under the Reports section. And we want to look here under the Reports section. My suggestion, if you're starting, is to use the Report Wizard. So we click on that, and then we are going to pick some fields here from the Customers table. So we go, for example, if you wanted the customer ID, you can pick it as well. Click on Add Customer ID, first name, last name, and let's say we want just their telephone number and the email address. Notice you can pick only certain fields. Then you can also go here under the drop down before we move to the next step, and we can pick from the contracts table. From another table we can pick fields from that table as well, because those tables are linked with primary keys and foreign keys. So we go here under table, contracts, and now let's say we want the contract amount and then the contract type. So that's all we want in our case. Then we click on Next. Since we are using multiple tables, the system is asking us, do we want to group the report results by customer or by contracts? So in this case, if you have a customer that has multiple contracts, you want all those contracts for that customer grouped together. So in my case, I'm going to choose customers, and it's going to list me the customer and then a sub-listing of all that customer's contracts. So that's what this is for. So you have customer up here, and then the contracts will be listed right below it. Then we click here on Next, and then, so what kind of levels do we want here? So we could say we want the customer ID, first name, last name, telephone, email, and then the contact information right below it. So then we click on Next. And then how do you want to sort those? So we could sort those records, and then you could also choose here the report summary options. And here, let's say you want to see what the average is, or what the sum of all the contracts was, and all that type of stuff for each customer. You can just choose here sum, and the system is going to give you the total of all their reports for each customer, or all of their invoices or contracts for each customer. So this option is going to be available if you have numbers in there, number values or amounts in there. Then we click on Next, and then it's asking us, do we want to have the orientation as portrait or landscape? And you can tinker with that and check it out. But in our case, since we do not have as many fields, it's okay to have it as portrait. Then we click on Next again, and then we have to give a name for this report. So in our case, we'll say customers and contracts. Or you could say contracts by customer. Now you can change this later as well, but it's important to give meaningful names as you start with a report. Then click on Finish, and this is how our report will look like. So this is kind of a preview we need to kind of adjust it a little bit. Notice we have these amounts or dollar signs here and all this type of stuff. So we'll need to customize this in a little bit. So for now, I'm going to close it. Here to customize this further, we go under View, and if you wanted a preview of it at this stage, you could do a preview, but it's not ready yet. Notice it's not quite ready with all of its stuff yet. We can go back here, close the Print Preview option, go under Layout View, and we can adjust the layout of this a little bit. So notice how we have the amounts here. We could actually move this farther to the left. So these would be the amounts. And then we can resize this field. Then we can go and get also the description of what the contract is, and then resize that as well how we want it to look. Then also resize other objects that you'd like here. Now notice, we'll assume here we know what the contracts are and such, but notice that the actual labels are here on the right hand side. I'm going to delete them for now, just so that for simplicity, because we kind of know the amount here and also we know what the contract was. Now this over here, this is supposed to be the total for each contract, because we had chosen the totals. So this, you might want to move it also right below the amounts area. And then notice you have here summary for customer ID, and then 3 records and such. You could change the wording here. Notice it has sum. You can move that field closer, and instead of just sum, you could say total, and basically adjust the formatting any way you want. Remember, you can also apply themes for this to customize it so it looks slightly fancier without you having to waste your afternoon with this. And then, if this is not very useful, in your case, you can simply delete that specific field here. And then also remember that you can apply here the formatting. So let's say I wanted the formatting to be something like the previous cells here to remove this border. And notice you can go under Format, take the Format Painter, apply it to another field, and notice it's applied. So that's an easier way to apply the formatting. And again, you can take the time to customize this and make it as fancy as you want. Of course, you can also adjust the labels here on the very top. You could format that differently as well. And let's assume that you wanted these labels here on the top. You want them bold. You can, again, format them any way you want. Let's say that you wanted also the actual customer information, just the customer data, a certain font or color or whatever. You could format it however you want, and it would make it more visually pleasing. So this is one way to customize this using the layout view. So if I close this and save the changes, by the way, you have to save the changes in Microsoft Access only when you're changing the design of something. Otherwise, it will save the data automatically into your tables or into your forms. So now if I open this up, again, this is what it will look like. If I go to the print preview, this is what it will look like again for the print preview. Not bad. You have the customer 11 or 1115 here, whatever that number is, and notice you have all their contracts and also the total for each contract here, and you have also the footer for this page, or for this report. Now, if you wanted to make this and make more changes in a granular format and such, and go into more detail for tweaking the formatting of this, you can also use under, if I close here the print preview, you can use the design view. And under the design view, you can adjust here additional components. For example, the contract amount here, notice it's not fully lined up. I could adjust the size of it, could adjust how much space is between the amounts and contracts and the total here, and format certain things a different way. And let's say between each customer I wanted a little bit more space, I could adjust the spacing after each record, and so on. Now, if I go and save this and run it again by double clicking on it, notice there's a little bit more space between each customer and the total and the prior customer's information. So that's one way that you can customize this and tweak this further. As you're working with the reports and such, and we learned about this a little bit in a previous video, sometimes you might want to add a new field to the report. So for example, we have this report here, but for whatever reason, we wanted to also know here what the actual contract ID is, for whatever reason, as part of this report. So instead of us recreating the report from scratch, we could simply add one more field to this report, to this existing report. So to add the field, you could either go here on layout view and then under this area right here add an existing field. You could do it from here and you could choose to add. So right now it's showing us the fields from the customer table. However, we could choose all tables and we want it under the contract table, and we want it, let's say, the contract number, and we want that contract number at the end of the contract information area or wherever you need it. So we could drag it from here, actually put it in the very beginning, and place it basically wherever you need it, wherever you want it. I'm going to delete the little label for it in the top for now so that we keep our report slightly cleaner. Adjust the size of it accordingly, how you want it. Change also the font for it. And that's one way to display it in there using the layout view. The other way to display this field in there, to add this field, and this is what you'll probably use in most business environments, is by using the design view. So if I go here to my report, I'll close it for now, open up the report again, and go under View, Design View, or I could right click on it and choose Design View. That's another way to do it. Now at this point, notice these are my existing fields. I have the contract amount, I have the contract type. However, let's assume that right next to contract type, I want to add another field. In this case, I go here under Add Existing Fields, and I could add the field the same way that I showed a moment ago and drag contract number over here. I want to delete the label for it unless you have a use for it at this point in this view, and probably don't need the number to be that long. And then that field at this point should have been added. So if I close it and run it, I should have the contract number at the end of each contract for each customer here. So at this point, let me explain how this data is actually linked to and how you control the linking of each field to the actual table. Because the data from the report is actually pulled from the tables. It's not really stored in the report. It's actually just at any time you run the report, it's querying, it's looking up the data in the table, and it's displaying whatever the criteria is that you had specified. Go here under Design View, and if you go to any of these fields or the data fields here, so let's say contract type or contract amount and such, you can select the field and then just go under the property sheet. Property sheet, it's going to do is it's going to bring up the property details for this specific field that we just selected. And then here it's telling us how it's going to format it and all that type of stuff. And it's the contract amount that we have selected currently. We could select any of the fields here we want to from this report. And we could customize here any of the details, how we want this to be formatted basically. So this is just the formatting currently for this item. So we're controlling how the formatting is going to display for that value so far. However, if we go here under the Data tab, the control source is where is this linked to? It's telling us what the source of the control to, what table, and what field is it picking. So in this case, it's actually going to the contract amount from the contracts table. And if you click on the drop down, if for some reason you needed to link it to a different field that you had selected initially in your report, you could just pick it from here, or if you want to link it to a completely different field that does not show up over here under the list of fields for your current report, you can click on these three dots and then go under your database that you have opened, and you could link it to a different field within one of your tables. So for example, under contracts here, if I wanted to link it to the date or to another one, whatever it may be that I wanted, simply select it from here and then click OK, and then run the report again, and it's going to link it to a different control source from a different field on that table that you select. So that's how we can create a report from multiple tables and also group the results and create a calculated field for the amounts within each order for each customer and group those orders together. So that's one way to do that. So if you want to further customize this report and add or change the order of those fields and such, you can simply drag those fields by going here to the design view. So you go here under design view, and let's say we wanted to change the order of those fields, you can simply shuffle the fields around here. So this will put the contract number in the beginning. You can resize this how you want it. The amount, now it'll be in the end. Also the total, we'll put the total on the right hand side at this point, right below the amount. Then you can readjust the spacing between them. And now if we close it, save the changes, run it again, notice we have the number in the beginning, we have the actual contract information, and then we have the amount on the right hand side. If we wanted to further customize it, in this case such as formatting and such, we can go here under view, layout view, and tweak this a little bit more. Use the format painter and click on the destination cell, and it will apply the formatting of the previous cell that you had selected. Now if we close it, save the changes, run it again, now it should have been readjusted, the layout of it. If you want to see a preview of it, click on print preview, and at this point it will show up like this. Of course you can customize this stuff and make it as fancy as you'd like. You can make the reports very complex. It's very customizable basically.